Sabalenka's meltdown is officially breaking the internet. We're talking a smashed racket and a verbal tirade directed right at her box. The second that carbon fibers snapped against the court, the whole arena went dead silent. A gritty match instantly morphed into the most volatile eruption of her career. Opponents averted their eyes. The crowd sucked in a breath. Even her team froze, caught between rushing in to help or backing off to survive. No one anticipated the dam breaking with such violent force, right there in the global spotlight. But stress twists reality, even for athletes forged in iron. Every shriek, every wild motion, every second of that rage is now trending across every platform. Was it raw, competitive fire or total disrespect? The debate is raging, but a single truth emerged from the chaos. This wasn't your standard courtside tantrum. It was a jagged tear in the curtain, revealing the unfiltered storm raging inside a superstar who usually keeps it locked down. Aryna Sabalenka isn't merely an athlete. She is a natural disaster in sneakers, a juggernaut whose mere shadow on the baseline commands total focus. There is absolute authority in her swing. When she serves, it sounds like a cannon shot, echoing through the stadium. Stepping onto the court with her doesn't feel like a game. It feels like a psychological war. Since day one, she hasn't just participated in the sport, she's aimed to conquer it. But that elite skill set came packaged with a fuse as short as her game is explosive. Die-hard enthusiasts have been tracking a specific rhythm in her career for years. Crushing wins, volatile celebrations, and those periodic detonations that leave spectators hovering between awe and unease. Sabalenka shot to the top like a rocket. She didn't just meet expectations, she bulldozed them with brute strength and grit. The crowds fell in love with her savage energy, that refusal to blink, even when staring down the legends of the sport. But peel back the gold medals and headlines, and you'd find a high-pressure boiler waiting to blow. Every major final wasn't just a physical test. It was a crushing load of expectation from her box, the press, the fans, and her own mind. When you're at her level, simply getting the win doesn't cut it. The gamble is huge, the microscope is zoomed in tight, and the room for mistakes is practically microscopic. That weight forged her persona as much as her trophy cabinet. Sabalenka is the definition of intensity. We aren't just talking muscle, we're talking about the emotional gasoline that ignites every single sprint. One wide ball, one dropped service game, or a tight loss, and you've got front page news. Airborne equipment, primal screams, and tension thick enough to cut. For some viewers, it was genuinely scary. For others, it was proof of her heart, a warrior refusing to be tamed. Love it or hate it, you couldn't ignore the reality. When Sabalenka's feelings bubbled up, the sport stopped to stare. We've seen cracks in the armor for years now. From rookie meltdowns to volcanic eruptions during the highest stakes. Showdowns, she's shown us that her mind is lifting just as much heavy iron as her muscles. These flashes reveal a fighter waging war on two fronts: the opponent across the net and the demons inside her own head. The pundits argue constantly. Is this fire her secret weapon or a ticking time bomb waiting to destroy her? And now, the detonator has finally gone off. We aren't talking about the score anymore. We're talking about the visceral human collapse of an elite gladiator. This viral clip wasn't an isolated incident. It was the final drop in a bucket filled with years of grind, hope, and relentless anxiety. This narrative transcends the baseline. It's about the chess match she's playing against her own psyche. The silent wars that rage in the dark until they suddenly burst into the spotlight. It's the collision point where force hits friction, talent hits trauma, and a hero looks frighteningly human. Right there, on the razor's edge between glory and disaster, is where this viral saga actually starts. The arena was electric, sold-out seats, blinding floods, and a global audience tuned in. Sabalenka had clawed her way to the championship match. Every round was a gut check, yet nothing could have braced the world for the spark that was about to set the season on fire. As the set ground on, the pressure in the air became suffocating with every ball exchange. Neither woman would yield. They were digging deep, trading blows. The scoreboard was deadlocked, and every point felt like trench warfare. Sabalenka was unleashing hell forehands, sounding like gunshots, and serves, painting the lines with surgical accuracy. But between the winners, the facade was slipping. A clenched jaw here, a narrowed eye there, tiny fissures in the stone. This was about way more than a piece of silverware. It was about legacy, pride, and that crushing backpack of expectations she couldn't take off. And then the snap. The game hit its boiling point. And those final rallies became a blur of pure, unadulterated chaos. Sabalenka scrambled for every ball, refusing to yield an inch. But when the critical point slipped through her fingers, something deep within her shattered. In a heartbeat, she gripped her racket and drove it into the hard court with such ferocity that the crack echoed like a gunshot, freezing the audience in their seats. The suffocating stress, the mounting aggravation, the weight of expectation, it all detonated in that singular, violent motion. This wasn't merely equipment abuse. It was a distress flare, a raw and unfiltered transmission of pure agony that left onlookers paralyzed. Even the umpire and her own box sat motionless for a beat, caught off guard by the sheer suddenness of the eruption. High-definition lenses zoomed in, broadcasting her fury, her disbelief, and the internal hurricane that was tearing her apart. Court attendants flinched and stepped back, instinctively wary of the emotional shrapnel flying around. For her, it was an exorcism. To the global audience, however, it was a spectacle of bewilderment. Even after the racket lay twisted, the theater continued. The aftershocks kept coming, a primal scream, rigid body language, and a desperate, visible war to wrestle her own mind back under control. Anyone watching could see this wasn't about one missed shot. It was the boiling point of a much deeper cauldron. A lifetime of grinding on the tour, the stakes, and the relentless drive for perfection had all converged into this one unforgettable snapshot. Later, facing the press, she attempted to rationalize the chaos, pulling back the curtain on the human vulnerability behind the outburst. She explained that venting was a survival mechanism, a way to flush the system so she could face the cameras and the crowd with some semblance of grace afterward. Her confession revealed the tightrope she walks daily, balancing the inferno that fuels her wins with the ice-cold demeanor demanded of a Grand Slam champion. The court of public opinion, however, is rarely forgiving, and sympathy was in short supply. The internet caught fire instantly, with timelines flooded by arguments over whether this was competitive fire or a complete lack of discipline. Pundits broke down the footage frame by frame, analyzing every grimace and every violent swing of the carbon fiber frame. While some recognized the unbearable heat of the moment, others questioned if a top-tier professional should ever let the mask slip so aggressively. That singular moment became the catalyst, the ember that started a wildfire of viral content. The incident transcended the match itself. As the footage spread, the entire tennis community went into overdrive. Within the hour, loops of the smash and her guttural yells were trending everywhere, retweeted by diehard enthusiasts and casual scrollers alike. Slow-motion replays made it look even more intense, highlighting the sheer desperation in her eyes, sparking arguments in comment sections worldwide. The narrative split. Was she a warrior buckling under the weight of glory, or a brat crossing the line of sportsmanship? The fan base was torn in two. Loyalists rallied to her defense, claiming this raw energy is exactly what makes her a titan of the sport. They championed her ferocity, arguing that you cannot have the thrill of her winners without the chaos of her frustration. To them, the rage was proof of how much she cared, a badge of honor rather than a defect. The opposition was ruthless, insisting that destroying equipment and terrifying the staff was behavior unbecoming of an idol, regardless of the scoreboard. Internet humor, scathing editorials, and heated forum posts turned a moment of weakness into a week-long global headline. But then, a second event occurred that shifted the tone from drama to genuine concern. Deep in a later tournament, with the match on a knife edge, the red mist descended on Sabalenka once again. This time, she launched her racket blindly in a fit of pique, and it skidded alarmingly close to a ball kid. Suddenly, the danger wasn't just metaphorical. The commentary team reacted immediately, their voices dropping to serious tones, warning that she was playing with fire. A collective intake of breath swept the stands, and the online chatter turned dark. People began asking, what if that had connected? Was she skirting a boundary that could result in immediate disqualification or injury simply because the pressure was too high? Every camera angle was scrutinized. Experts brought in psychologists to decode her posture and tics. They pointed to the white-knuckle grip and the wild look in her eyes, debating how a winner's focus can mutate into dangerous volatility. The conversation shifted to whether these repeated explosions were a liability to her legacy and the physical safety of those around her. Sabalenka was transforming into a dual figure in the public eye, a beacon of immense talent and a ticking time bomb. She was a player where genius and instability seemed to be roommates. The reaction wasn't limited to the bleachers. Her peers, both current rivals and retired legends, started chiming in with their takes. Some offered grace, noting the impossible mental strain of the tour, knowing how it feels when a trophy slips away. Others took the hard line, reinforcing that emotional regulation is part of the job description. Every interview snippet just added fuel to the furnace. For the player herself, this was no longer just about blowing off steam. It had morphed into a defining career narrative. Mainstream news outlets picked up the story, zooming in on the drama rather than the scoreline. Bold text across screens highlighted the rage on the court, debating the risks and turning a sports story into a cautionary tale. Are we witnessing a gladiator finally snap under the strain, or a fallen idol forgetting the heavy responsibility of her crown? At the center of the hurricane stood Sabalenka, a titan whose genius, fire, and very soul were suddenly being weighed on the same scale. The explosion served a double purpose. It highlighted the savage intensity of her drive while simultaneously stripping away the armor to reveal the fragile human beneath. A single, fleeting video clip transformed a standard game into a worldwide debate regarding the suffocating weight of expectation in elite athletics. As the internet caught fire, the entire narrative changed. The scoreboard no longer mattered. This transcended a simple defeat. The shockwaves from her eruption were instantaneous and severe. Digital platforms burned for days as the footage was dissected frame by frame, igniting furious arguments among the fan base. Pundits clashed over the implications, scouring slow-motion replays for clues, effectively pivoting the spotlight from her backhand to her temperament. For the Belarusian star, the real price of that televised outburst was just beginning to become clear. Condemnation poured in from every conceivable angle. Critics openly wondered how a world-class icon could let the mask slip so completely before a packed arena and a massive digital audience. Detractors claimed the pulverized racket and the verbal assault on the crew weren't just passion, they were reckless endangerment. The locker room and commentary booths were split, with legends of the game debating the incident. Is blowing off steam a natural byproduct of the grind, or a red flag signaling a dangerous crack in the foundation? Yet, a legion of supporters rallied to her side, pointing to the crushing mental load and the manic energy needed to survive at the summit. She is flesh and blood, not a robot, they argued, insisting she had every right to bleed emotion. Conversely, the hardliners were merciless, driving hashtags that branded the display as amateurish and a threat to safety. Every comment, thread, and survey highlighted a deepening rift between those who offered compassion and those demanding punishment. News outlets poured gasoline on the inferno. Banners screamed of scandal, focusing less on the tennis and more on the spectacle of a star unraveling and the dangers therein. Serious questions arose. Was her celebrity status acting as a suit of armor against real consequences? If a no-name rookie had pulled the same stunt, would they have been spared? Or was this a classic case of double standards? The saga evolved into a parable about responsibility, the immunity of the elite, and the psychological grinder of pro athletics. Even inside her own camp, the air was thick with unease. Her handlers and tournament directors walked a tightrope, trying to back their champion, without ignoring the legitimate fears regarding court safety and respect for the game. Sabalenka found herself living a paradox, worshipped for her ferocity, yet vilified when that same fire burned out of control. At the core of the noise lay a fundamental inquiry. Where do we draw the line? Her explosion forced the sport to stare at the razor's edge between competitive fire and genuine danger. It triggered a fierce debate regarding psychological safety, the management of stress, impossible demand for robotic stoicism from athletes drowning in pressure. The wave of negativity carried a personal sting, making the viral clip far more than a fleeting internet sensation. It became an indelible ink stain on the biography of Aryna Sabalenka. Everyone from grandstand ticket holders to Hall of Famers argued over what this meant for her future and her name in the history books. Was it a scary loss of control, or simply the raw, unfiltered reality of a warrior pushed past the brink? Regardless, the incident solidified her status not just as a titan of the court, but as a deeply layered character defined by both brilliance and breakage. Her story is now written in both sweat and tears. Her physical dominance is undeniable. But the curtain has been pulled back to show a fragility the public rarely glimpses. Ironically, that very flaw makes her human, transforming a remote idol into a gripping protagonist. It serves as a stark warning that even at the summit of glory, the demons of stress and scrutiny are always lurking. The meltdown proved that even gods of the arena bleed, capable of impossible feats, yet susceptible to breaking under the weight of it all. Look past the viral loops, however, and you find a narrative of recovery. Her willingness to own the mistake, offer amends, and look in the mirror reveals a maturity born from the chaos. That kind of soul-searching is the only way to survive a long life in the spotlight. By facing her demons on the world stage, she transformed a PR nightmare into a masterclass on resilience and taking responsibility. It's no longer simply a matter of keeping a lid on her explosive temper. The real challenge is alchemy, transmuting that volatile fury into match-winning fuel without burning down the house. While the crowd remains divided on her antics, there is a growing respect for the raw paradox she represents. Sabalenka stands as a titan with a human heart, unstoppable one moment, fragile the next, a genius prone to errors. That internal conflict transforms her career from a simple athletic record into a gripping psychological drama. It becomes a profound narrative about the crushing weight of expectation and the fragile nature of ambition at the summit of sport. Each splintered racket and screamed obscenity offers a raw look at the steep price of perfection and the chaos within a winner's skull. As the tour moves forward and she graces arenas globally, the ghost of that public unraveling walks with her. The audience isn't just tracking the score anymore. They are on edge, watching for the spark, waiting to see if she explodes or endures. Her professional life has morphed into a high-stakes tightrope walk between pure talent and emotional turbulence. Now, every time she serves, she must prove she can ride the storm without being drowned by the waves. Ultimately, that viral moment of madness gave us more than a headline. It gifted us a saga of grit, fallibility, and introspection. History won't judge her solely on silverware, but on how she confronts her personal demons while the world watches. The lingering mystery is whether Aryna can truly harness her inner flame, forging it into an invincible weapon, or if the very fire that fuels her rise will remain her most dangerous adversary. The final chapter is miles from being written, but spectators, detractors, and rivals agree on a single truth. Whenever she steps between the lines, it ceases to be just a game. It becomes a visceral study of a warrior's soul. Aryna's breakdown was far heavier than a mere tantrum. It was a rare peek behind the curtain at the torture and ecstasy of elite performance. It served as a stark wake-up call that sporting gods are mortal, proving that the drive for glory often dances on the edge of disaster. Her journey is still unfolding, and every future contest will vibrate with the aftershocks of that day, illustrating the heavy burden carried by those who chase immortality. So, where do you stand? Is she a valiant gladiator battling the odds, or is that volcanic temper a liability waiting to detonate? Drop your take in the comment section. We want to hear your voice. If you loved this intense look at the darker side of tennis and crave more tales of heated rivalries and legendary outbursts, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell to stay locked in for what's coming next.